I don't think men realize that they're actually fighting for the right to stay dependent, immature, or to suffer, or to be really lousy partners. Now, not all men, of course, but the men that are saying that they want women to go back to being how they were, or the men that are raging out, but just enter relationships to see what they can get from someone, or say that they don't need anyone, but then they're real angry every day. You don't realize what's happening. Otherwise, you wouldn't be fighting for it. And women are actually, for the most part, I'd say the majority, trying to help you with that. Let me explain. If you go back to the early 1800s in the US and other countries, and I know there's other countries that still have not a lack of rights for women, but let's just look at the US in the 1800s. And what we had was women were basically like children when it came to the law. They were signed off as property. You could, even by the church, you could beat your wife if she was out of line, but with a stick no wider than a certain amount. You had rights to your wife as far as sleeping with her whenever you wanted to as a male, not whenever she wanted to. That only changed within a marriage. I think in New York, it was like in the 1990s, early 1990s. So that was a thing. Women could not vote. So they were basically, in many ways, in all the masculine ways, they were like a child. They also couldn't own property. If you were a man and you had a wife and a couple of children, and something happened to you, passed away, then your wife did not get that house, and she had to hope that your brother or whoever your property went to that was a male in your family would let her live there. So women really wanted to have all these rights, and men had to have a bank account, own property, all these things. And they fought for that. They had to fight for that. But there were men, think about it now, the only power that could be given to them was given to them by men, because men were in charge of everything. So men voted to give women the right to have property. Men voted to give women the right to vote. And I think what I had read was that it came down to one vote, and it was a real young guy. And on his way there, his mom told him to vote to allow women to have the vote. I don't have the exact details, but I'm pretty sure that's how it was. So I feel like all the rights that I have today were fought for not just by women, but by men too. So I feel like I want to help men mature their what used to be just the feminine side, which is emotional regulation. And besides like the cooking and cleaning and chores and stuff, people kind of defer to that. And they'll say, well, I can just have my laundry done, or I can go out and eat at restaurants. And then women will say, well, I can just get an alarm or a guard dog. Like when we're talking about the actual jobs that people had, they were divided as well. But I mean, when I was growing up, there wasn't really like stay-at-home dads. I think we had two male teachers in my whole primary school. There weren't really male nurses. So there's been a lot of integration in a lot of ways. And if you saw a woman, you wouldn't think she's a doctor, you'd think she's a nurse. So there's a lot of things that have changed over the years, but there's still this core identity that a lot of men hold on to as if they'll be less masculine if they mature their emotional, which has been called, and you can take it or leave it, but it's been called the feminine side. So what is emotional maturity? You have masculine maturity means you're not like a child, right? So that is the ability now that women have to own a home, to open a bank account, to take out a loan, to have a business, to vote, to serve in politics. So women have all that now. They have the ability to do all those things. What are the abilities that men don't have? They don't have that emotional regulation. They probably don't even know what it is. And sometimes women will say they want a man who's emotionally mature or emotionally intelligent. I like maturity better than intelligence, because intelligence is kind of there or not, but maturity is something that you develop, and that's a more accurate term for it. So let's say if you get upset about something, it means that you're able to communicate what your feelings are. You have to know what your feelings are to be able to communicate them. Now, men traditionally have only been able to have anger, excitement. You're allowed to laugh, and you're allowed to get sad if someone passes away, but only for like a day or two. So you'll try to fit, this is all subconscious, I'm sure. You'll try to fit your emotions into one of those boxes. Is it exciting? Are you at a sports game? high emotions. They're flying out. Like men have emotions just as much as women. But at sports games, people are crying, cheering. Yeah, that's my team. They're really excited. You're allowed to do that. Or if you go to a comedy show, you're allowed to laugh as hard as you want. You have tears in your eyes. Like men need to express these emotions just as much as women do. But women are allowed to have a much broader spectrum by society. And then to be angry, well, men get angry at anything. So I'll give you an example of the 3 boxes with the tiny fourth as sadness. So I was at the post office, and a man was behind the counter. He was the postman. And then another one was going to mail a package, and he reached for a stapler, and he accidentally knocked it behind the desk. So it went all the way down to the floor. You couldn't get it. And he froze there. And in that moment, he's trying to think of what emotion fits here. Is it excitement? No. Is it anger? Maybe. Is it laughter? And he started laughing. And that's it doesn't fit. What it should have been, if he had a wider range of emotions, is if any emotion, it might be embarrassment because he was a little clumsy or something. So he might have said, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. That would be a more accurate expression of emotion and then the corresponding language that goes with it. But if you don't have that ability, you can't do that. You could either laugh. So a lot of women will say, well, how are you laughing at this? Without understanding, they think it's cold or they think it's cruel or it's a narcissist. He doesn't have the emotions and he has no idea which box to put it in. You told him not to get angry, so now he's going to laugh. We need to broaden that spectrum. But this is emotional immaturity. It's like dealing with a child when it comes to anything to do with emotions. So he's going to go stomp off or get mad, or he's going to get real angry, throw a tantrum. And it's not helpful, and it's not a good way to be a partner. Now, back in the day, in the 1800s, women just kind of had to absorb and regulate all the man's emotions. They provided the support. He's had a bad day. The wheel fell off the buggy. They provide the encouragement. They give the bright side. These are all the things that you do in emotional regulation. So now, if women are taking on a lot of the masculine, and the men have all the masculine, but women are doing all their own emotional regulation, and they're in a relationship, and the man comes and he starts heaping all of this daily emotional laundry on her for her to sort and clean and rinse out and hand back to him. Well, she can't do that. She doesn't want, that's a job at this point because she's already doing her own. So if he says, oh, the traffic was so terrible, she'll probably just say, without realizing what she's doing, she'll say, why are you always bitching about that? I had traffic too, because she's not going to bring that to him if she's doing her emotional regulation. So we've got or if someone almost gets in an accident, if someone cuts you off, someone who has the ability and the skills to do the emotional regulation or emotional maturity is gonna be scared, maybe even angry, like, oh, that jerk, but then they'll let it go. Thank goodness that didn't happen. Thank goodness they didn't get an accident, and return to the point of getting to where they need to go. That's why they're in the car. But if someone has no emotional maturity and someone cuts them off and almost causes an accident, they'll get angry. They'll get really angry. They'll think about it again. I could have been there. That jackass, he should learn how to drive. And they'll keep it. And if they are by themselves in the car, then when they get home in the evening, if they have a partner, they'll say, you wouldn't believe the guy today. Or maybe at work, they'll say, I can't believe on the way here. And all this is doing is stirring up so much drama and so many emotions. And these are being dumped on everyone who they come in contact with, rather than, I'm not saying hold on to it, I'm saying be able to learn how to either express it or dissolve it. In the car situation, that was dissolving it. Expressing it, if you have the verbiage and you know what the different emotions are, then at the post office, you can express it. I'm sorry, that was an accident. I didn't mean to knock your stapler off. I'm embarrassed, or something like that. You know what I mean? You don't even have to state that you're embarrassed, but to know what the emotion is so that you know what to do with it. And embarrassment, if it's an accident, then you can also then instantly forgive yourself. It was an accident. Accidents happen. But another thing with when you don't have the emotional regulation, if you don't use any of those things, another thing you will try to do. Now, a lot of these things are going to sound like, oh, that sounds like a narcissist. Well, I think a narcissist is actually emotionally immature, and that would explain why there's a heck of a lot more than 1% or whatever the number of narcissists is supposed to be. So if you don't want to put it in the angry box, it doesn't fit there. If you don't want to put it in the excitement box, because it doesn't fit there. You don't want to put it in the laughter box because it's not funny and you've been told you're cold if it's funny. What are you going to do? You're more prone to deny it. Well, that didn't happen. And then hope that it's not, rooted out. Again, this is making you a lousy partner. This is making her frustrated and take on even more than just the emotional laundry, but also then trying to pull out the truth, causing a whole bunch of painful emotions in her, and then trying to sort it out. And it's just such a mess. So women say that they want someone with emotional maturity, but then men, without knowing that this is what it is, will say, well, you just want me to be a woman. That's not how men are. If I did that, then, and I saw a video and a stitch of a video, and it was a bunch of men that were going out for walks, and they were all different ages, and they were having this group, and they just talk about stuff. The stitch of the video was by a man who said, like, oh, nobody's going to do that. That's so gay. And see, that's the thing. A lot of men will associate that emotional energy, anything emotion, with feminine, whether it's a woman or a gay man, and they don't want to be either of those things. You're a human being. You have emotions. Everyone has emotions. It doesn't make you a woman to have emotions. It makes you a human being. And it doesn't make you a man to not learn how to deal with your emotions. It makes you a child in that regard. And someone else, then you're going to have you could hire a therapist, but they're only getting paid for that hour a week or whatever it is. This is something that you need every single day. These are survival things. That's why the relationships back in the day, they were codependent. They really needed each other. If a woman didn't have a man, she couldn't have a house. She didn't have money. She couldn't get a job. She couldn't have boats. She couldn't do all those things. So she needed a husband. And a man, for all that emotional regulation, plus the cooking and cleaning and having children, he can't do that by himself. So he needed a wife. So they stayed together. They thought, I can't live without you. And it was true. But then if one of them passed away, they'd probably immediately go out and get another one. Now, a lot of women, when they were older, if their spouse passed away, they were then, if they were allowed to own the property and they had money from, the lifetime together, they wouldn't get remarried because they already had certain securities in place that they didn't need to get from a man. So they didn't want to have that job with the emotional regulation. And still that happens today. What is the point of all this? The point of all this is men are saying, there's this loneliness epidemic, and the male taking one's own life is at an all-time high and getting higher, and there's more crime and rage and fighting. And I know as people are driving a little more crazy too, but I think this is all because there's such a portion of men that have actually been kind of abandoned. Okay, so let's go back to women trying to get the right to vote. Women were trying to get the right to vote, and there were a lot of men that were against it. If you look back at women's suffrage movement, you'll see all these drawings and cartoons that were in newspapers, and there were posters, and it was of women dressed in pants and really ugly, and that's where the whole spinster thing came in. And well, she couldn't get a man, now she wants to be one, and showing a man with the babies, and the woman's there telling him what to do. So they were associating masculine with control, and the women saying that they wanted to vote. Well, they just want to be a man. So this did happen 100 years ago, but in the opposite. And it was then a put down. So also when I was younger, well, I didn't know anyone who had a stay-at-home dad. But as that started happening, men who decided to stay home with the children, or maybe their wife owned a business or had a really high-paying good job, so it made more sense for him to stay home. Or maybe he just wanted to be the one that raised the children. And it was, well, what's the matter with you? Why can't you work? They were getting these questions that are just flat out insults. And probably many of them are today. Well, why is she working? Was she the man of the house? So they're associating these masculine and feminine things with man or woman. If you realize that any woman that says that she wants a man that has emotional maturity or emotional intelligence, again, I don't like that word, she's asking for a human. She doesn't want, as an insult as a man child, she doesn't want a man child. She wants a man. She wants a human. That's what she wants. For the women, the men who are drawing all those cartoons, if you're making fun of men expressing anger, not within a relationship, you shouldn't be in anything like that, because it can be a burden, and you shouldn't be the one to educate him, just like he shouldn't have been the one to give you the vote. Like, that's outside things. But as friends, you can help your male friends, your male acquaintances. That's wise. But to try to grow up a man, you would become his mother and his teacher. And what do men do with their mothers and teachers? They rebel and they hide stuff. So that's not a good idea. But online specifically, when women are commenting on things and they're insulting men or shaming them or belittling them, that's just the same as the men that were doing that to women who wanted the right to vote and wanted to own property, wanted to have bank accounts. Like, the men who were doing that, that's like an oppression and shaming people into not growing. How would you help something? Well, number one, just don't leave those comments. I don't know when the majority of men are going to realize that this is what's happening and actually seek to develop. There's no laws preventing you from regulating your own emotions. There's no laws that say you can't feel embarrassment, know what it is, and know what to do with it. Like, this is all an inside job. Men are going to have to individually and then collectively, or vice versa, realize that to be emotionally mature means you don't have to suffer because you can take care of stuff yourself. You don't have to be dependent on a woman. You won't be manipulated by your emotions by a man or a woman or anyone. You will be able to be independent and mature, which is a lot stronger if you are emotionally mature. And 20 years ago, I remember I dated someone. I had a really successful business back then. And I remember him saying to me, like, he didn't make that much money. I liked him. I thought he was funny. I thought he was nice. And he said, well, you don't need me. And I said, I know. And this was such a huge thing. Again, this is like 20 years ago. So I didn't get it. I was like, yeah, I don't need you. I want to be with you. And I was saying it like this is a good thing. He was horrified. And after that, within that relationship, he was not nice to me. It was like, now they have all these words for it, like gaslighting and negging and all this. Like, he would give me these snide remarks or criticize my work. Or there was just so much because, that's the other thing. If a man doesn't have his emotional side mature and regulated, the only thing he's going to see is that developed, mature masculine side in a woman. So he's going to see her, his partner, as competition rather than a partner. That weakens the strength of the partnership on the whole. So if you're in a partnership, if you're in a husband and wife codependent, the man does all the man things, the woman does all the woman things, that's fine. That's the codependent. She's all the support and he's all the provider, protector, whatever. But in that partnership, when you're more equal, and there's going to be, differences and things may change a little while. If someone loses their job and the other person still has a job, that's great. So it's actually a stronger unit because you're not always going to be able to be there in that one role all the time. So if it's interchangeable, you'll be a stronger unit. But if one person is sabotaging that partnership, that unit, it's weaker. And if it's, with a man and a woman, and if he's doing that to her, what she's going to realize is she was actually better off alone without him. And then the man, regrets, I don't know why I did that. I don't know what came over. Again, it's not being able to even recognize what the emotions are before being able to resolve certain things, express certain things, and to be able to see how, a feeling of insecurity can make you feel competitive with someone who's on your side. Well, if you realize that, you'll be able to catch yourself and congratulate someone when they do well, not feel envious of your partner who is happy for you, There's so many things. That's kind of like not a super brief overview, but kind of a brief overview. And I would encourage women to, hold the sarcastic and condescending comments. And I would encourage men to be more open to, whether it's through therapy or through, my videos or other people's videos that talk about actual emotional maturity and developing emotional maturity, how to do it. It's not it's not all going to happen all at once, and you don't have to do it out loud and in the open, but to be able to have that is going to be so much better for not just for an individual or a partnership, but for the entire society and hopefully eventually the entire world. That's what the goal is. And women have a head start. We've got, 120 years ish of from first being able to own property to now, But it doesn't mean, because there's no laws, because there doesn't actually have to be a fight to get there, men could probably catch up within a generation. I would love to see it in my lifetime, and I hope you would too. Thank you.